name's Tony Urban. I live in Blissfield, Michigan. My address is 5056 South Blissfield Highway. As I said, my name's Tony Urban. I am a board member of Great Lakes Wind. I came on board in, I think, in June of 2008. I have family members in the project. My wife's grandmother and my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They all have land leased. I'm going to talk a little bit about the number of acres and residents that are actually participating in the project. First, what I have is, bear with me here, all over the place. The numbers are round figures, but the number of acres that Great Lakes Wind and Exelon have leased is around 11,500 acres in our project footprint. Now, in our project footprint, it includes Riga, Ogden, and Palmyra. And as far as the percentage of the footprint that we have, we control about 21 to 23% of our footprint, which we believe is around about 26,000 acres. Okay. We do have a competitor, and because everybody knows in business, you got to keep a good eye on your competitor. And I think we have close approximation of their acres in the footprint of our project also. We believe that UE and Orisol combined in whatever numbers have around 13,000 acres in our project footprint also. So combined, you're talking around 24,000 acres between the two of us, leased in the project footprint. I think I misstated that number. I'm sorry, I did. The project footprint would be around 50,000 plus acres. Okay, I did stuff with it, sorry. Which gives UE and Orisol about 26, 27% of land control in our project footprint too, where we want, where we would like to have the project happen. Which doesn't include about roughly about 5,000 acres at the bottom side of Ogden and Riga, which consists of 8.5 sections on each side. It's roughly 5,000 acres that is not included in our footprint that UE and Orisol do control. A large portion of it, but I don't know those numbers. It's no concern with us.
Time is up, sir.
All right. Thank you for your time. No, I'm okay. I do support the project and thanks for your time.
Someone else want to speak?
Hello, I'm David Munson, 1513 Brookfield Court, Adrian. And many of you know me. I was the economic developer in the county from 1984 to early 2007. So I've worked on a number of different kinds of projects and occasionally been to this body and spent an awful lot of time in this room with the County Board of Commissioners. And I would say to you that economic development is a reasonable rationale for zoning and permitting. And if you have a very sensitive and difficult job because you have to work on the issues of how any type of development would be mitigated in such a way to protect the greater public to the extent possible and reasonable. I'd like to say that it's my belief that this effort that brings us here tonight, not directly these projects, but this effort that results in wind ordinances addressing wind power those kinds of things really came out of this room, this group, Planning Commission, a number of years ago when we had to address comprehensive land use planning and county land use plan, and began to think about the consequences if residential development were to take over wholesale in particularly the southeast corner of the county versus what could we do to preserve farmland and to reduce that type of development. That led on to another effort within the county to look at value-added agriculture. There's been projects of different descriptions that came from that, some small, some large. The economic development project that Blissfield Wind Energy proposes, and we realize we're part of, there are potentially larger benefits, but we speak to ours, and that is 150 to 200 construction jobs, 6 to 8 full-time jobs. But probably on this project, more importantly, is the tax base, which is about it's greater than $18 million in the first 20 years from 45 turbines, and it includes taxes that go to Lenawee County, Riga Township, Ogden Township, Elmira Township, schools, debt mills, road fire. It's about $20,000 a year per turbine. And then the landowners, and that includes neighbors within so many feet who get included or can be included in leases, even though they don't have a turbine, just based on their proximity. That is greater than $20 million, and that's a pretty good compromise between balancing. There's some great tax revenue, in the agricultural community. The revenue on both sides will get spent and respent within the community and serve everyone. But I'd like to urge your consideration of changes that were addressed, and thank you for your time.
David, quick question. How much was that per turbine again?
$20,000 per year. I should have said per year. Per turbine.
Yeah. Lady over there.
Oh, is there something for me?
No.
Yeah, hi, my name is Greg Warback. I'm at 12499 Yankee Road, Riga Township. Just wanted to make a couple comments on low frequency noise. There was a gentleman speaking earlier about the lively debate that was held at the Township Planning Commission here several weeks ago. And really the takeaway from that discussion was, two experts arguing over, whether or not there's detrimental impact to residents on both high and low frequency sound. So, one of the gentlemen speaking was Dr. Goldberg, and I just want to, and this document was provided to Tim, as part of our rebuttal to the study, where in July of 2006, he was giving testimony regarding a wind turbine project siting in Vermont. Now, obviously, he's representing the turbine companies now, so he's got a vested interest in that. But the final conclusion of the proposed wind turbine in Vermont was it is likely high annoying impulse sound, which is the low frequency noise standard that we've asked to have placed in the ordinance that the township board voted on. And by the way, that was not an arbitrary number. That number was very thoughtfully derived and given by experts and other people with such sound decibel levels in their ordinances. But he goes on to say that it's likely that highly annoying impulse noise described as rhythmic thump, described as a different distant pile driving, will be audible in the evening at sensitive receptors within 2 kilometers from the turbines. Okay, which will include the area that was impacted by this particular development. The impulse noise would substantially impact public health and aesthetics in a very quiet rural area where this particular wind park was to be proposed. So really the takeaway is that experts will argue their opinion, but typically it's the dollars that influence the message that they're giving. So again, the ordinance as proposed, the sound levels as proposed, were very thoughtfully derived and done so using existing ordinances and experts in the field. Thank you.
I'm Jermaine Guns. My address is 9450 Berkey Highway, Riga Township, Blissfield. And I've been a realtor in Michigan, licensed in Ohio and Michigan for over 25 years. And frankly, I'm worried about property values, and I want you to really take that into consideration. I I don't know of anybody that would want to buy a house 500 feet from a 500-foot tall Davis Bessie sized house. That's as tall as the tallest building in Toledo. I also own a 10-acre building site in Ragged Township. It's the only buildable lot in Ragged Township. And I do believe this ordinance takes away all my rights for my grandchildren or my children to build on that 10 acres. The ordinance now that is on the table deals with the sound setbacks, and to build on that site, can you assure me that site will remain a buildable lot without me going to asking my township for a variance to build on my own site that I've owned for over 40 years? Also, that ordinance does not deal with the 10 acres that I own that has an airstrip on it. I have been a Ragged Township resident all my life. I grew up there, I married there, I lived there. All my properties in Ragged Township. And we have an airstrip on that property that my husband has flown out of over 40 years. That ordinance that you have on the table does not deal with our rights to fly our airplanes or to have our strip used. And likewise with the other strips in our township, in Alden Township. That would, your suggestion, Tim, that we have a 1.1 to 1.5 setbacks from property line would mean there would be a 500-foot tower built on either end of my airstrip. And that's just not acceptable. If you're ready to, as this board, to really consider that, think about all the people that live up here that have this. And lastly, there's two things that you heard tonight. The Exelon also has, I don't know how many, you have to ask them, nuclear plants. Well, if you read these ordinances, and I don't know how many you've read, it also allows for alternative power sources for these turbines when the wind isn't producing. Does that mean that we can now have nuclear plants built in Ragged, Palmyra, and Ogden Township? We tried to do the nuclear ones before, exactly 20 years ago. And also on the tax benefits, I want you to really listen to that. You know as well as I do that on the Senate floor and the House floor is a bill to eliminate the personal property tax. They do not own this land that they're going to build these towers on. It is a personal property. If they eliminate the personal property tax, how much does the county, how much does our town, they promised a whole bunch tonight, how much the school was going to get. You know, they would only be paying on the sinking fund for the school. That's the smallest amount. Don't think about your school tax on your property because it doesn't apply the same to them. So beware of the promises that these strangers have made. They're not from my township and they're not from our county. They're not even from our country. These are out of country, out of state, out of our area developers. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to show you some pictures that was taken at Payne, Ohio. If there's just a good thing for a farmer, these farmers will never farm this year. There's 4 townships involved in that, I believe.
You say this year?
They cut all the tile. There's going to be no farmers in that township this year, maybe next year, I don't know. And then that gentleman from Exelon, he said they got so much power all over the United States, which I don't doubt. Well, why didn't they produce any for Texas this winter when they had to go to Mexico to get their power?
Speaking to the microphone.
I'd like to ask that gentleman why Texas had to go to
Give your name.
do so 87, 88 Berkeley Highway, Smithfield, Michigan. And I don't know, on the planning commission and the township
We
board.
need your name and address.
I already gave it. We got a meeting, we had a paper sent to us, every township board gets it, I believe, from the MTA. And the first thing on the governor's list was to knock the business activity tax off. The second thing on his list is the tax structure for property. If that goes through, then windmills will create not one dime for the county or the townships. And he's pretty heck on doing it. And another thing, we're getting so gung-ho, I don't know why, the state of Michigan is redoing all their regulations on these here because they're getting so many lawsuits and what have you. If this thing is so good, why is the state of Michigan, as we're speaking, redoing everything? That would, and another thing, I helped write this ordinance that you guys butchered. I don't know how did you come up with this 1 on 1 or 1 times 2, and where did you get this information?
Well, if you'd like to respond. It's from the guidelines for this.
It's not a guideline that we read, we've been on this for 2 years, and I've never read a guideline where it was 1 away from now.
You led guidelines.
Show me that guideline.
I have it.
I would like to read
Well,
that.
well, I'll show it to
I
you.
would like to read it.
Yeah, finish your time.
That's about it.